welcome to Relished. I'm Alli. I'm a nutritionist and a yoga teacher, and I'm here to talk to you about nutrition every week. Super excited for today's episode. As you might be able to see, we are doing squash. We've got a pumpkin. This is like an heirloom version of a pumpkin. Really good. We've got butternut squash, and we've got delicata squash. My husband grew both of these, and they are very delicious. So we're going to talk the nutrition components of squash, since it is in season and it's everywhere. It's so exciting to start seeing it in the grocery stores, and we have a whole staircase full of squash at our house. And then we're making two recipes. One is called creamy butternut squash pasta, and one is going to be a smoothie made with delicata squash, which I still need a title. So if anybody has any suggestions, that would be great. Hello, everybody. Yes, so thank you for reminding me. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. I love to discuss. So questions, comments, anything you'd like to say, I'll see you in the chat. I love for everybody to join in as much as they can during the show. So let's start today's show with butternut squash. Okay, so this is a butternut squash. One of my favorite squashes, just because you don't have to take a lot of the seeds out. When you cut it open, there's just a little section of the seeds, which that's really nice. And it just has a nice flavor. So butternut squash, you're going to find that all the nutrition I give you is, there's a big theme that goes through each type of squash that we're going to discuss. But that's good, because then we'll remember. So, butternut squash. Great source of beta-carotene, which then turns into vitamin A in our body. Also a great source of potassium, fiber, low in calories. So hello everybody, it's coming in. Thank you for joining. Okay, 1 cup of cooked butternut squash has 82 calories, so not a whole lot. It has, 2 grams of protein, no grams of fat, and we'll get to the vitamin A. But great source of vitamin A, great source of potassium, like we just said. So the recommended amount of vitamin A for men is 900 micrograms a day, and the recommended amount for women is 700 micrograms a day. And butternut squash, 1 cup of cooked butternut squash has almost 1,200 micrograms of vitamin A. So you're getting your whole daily amount of vitamin A that you need in 1 cup of cooked butternut squash. So that's great. And it also has vitamin C. And we all know that vitamin C and vitamin A are both antioxidants, which is good. You know, they get rid of all those bad free radicals in our bodies and floating around, and it helps our immune system. And the beta-carotene is also antioxidant. You know, that turns into the vitamin A. And that's good for our hair. It's good for our skin. The vitamin C is good for our skin, the collagen in our skin. And the potassium is good because that may help lower our blood pressure. So you know how they say to eat a low sodium diet to help our blood pressure? Well, having more potassium in our diet kind of offsets the sodium, so it's a good balance. So it's a great source of potassium. There's 582 milligrams of potassium in 1 cup of cooked butternut squash. So we've got some good stuff going on here with butternut squash. So here it is again. If we have time today, I'll show you how I cut the butternut squash. But we're going to move into the recipe now because it does cook for a little while. So again, the recipe is called creamy butternut squash pasta. Sorry, I forgot to say who it's from. It's from 2 Peas in Their Pod, which is a blog that is on relish.com. So creamy butternut squash. It's vegetarian, and you make a butternut squash sauce, and then you pour it over pasta. And I just want to show you these cute little pastas that we're going to have tonight. They're in the shape of pumpkins. Of course, Trader Joe's is where I got them, but they also have some butternut squash in them, I think just to color them, but I thought that was so cute. So we're going to have that for our pasta, but we're not going to cook the pasta tonight. So this recipe calls for 1 medium butternut squash, so that's about this size. The one I used was a little bit bigger, or I mean a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller. So the recipe says to peel it, take the seeds out, and then boil the squash, but I steamed it because I don't know if you remember or if you saw the episode, it was probably 2 months ago, on the best way to cook foods so that you can maintain the nutrients, and the best way, everybody says it in all the research, is to steam your veggies. So if you have the opportunity, steam versus boiling, just so it saves some of the water-soluble vitamins, especially vitamin C. So I've already steamed them because it does take a little while and I didn't want to take all of our time. So this is 1 butternut squash, peeled, seeds taken out, steamed. I steamed it for probably 12 to 15 minutes. I did it for 10, then I kept checking, and you just take a fork to make sure it's tender. So there we go. And we are going to put this in the blender. Okay. So let's start, let's see, I'm going to get a spoon. That limited counter space here on the set of Relish in my home. Okay, so we're putting the squash in the blender just so we're done with that part of it. And we're going to come back to that. But I just wanted to do that part. Put this on the counter over here. And now we're going to heat the stove, or heat a pan on the stovetop. I always use cast iron. I have to say that I didn't always use cast iron, but then when I moved in with my husband, he had cast iron, and I have really learned to love it. I really have, and we use it all the time, so now it's almost become its own nonstick because we use it so much, and there's just like a nice layer of oil kind of built inside. Okay, olive oil. And I'm going to put a pretty good amount. Now, the next thing we're doing is taking 8 sage leaves. This is also a really nice fall herb. 8 of these soft little sage leaves. They're like little rabbit ears. And we're going to fry those in the oil. So we want to make sure the oil is going to be hot enough. So I'm going to, what let's say a medium high. Okay, medium high. That's usually what I always do, like level 7 of 9. Okay, so we're heating that up. And then the other ingredients that we're going to, after we saute the sage, we are going to saute some onions and some garlic. While we're waiting for that oil to heat, I'm going to puree the butternut squash with 1.5 cups of vegetable broth. So here we go. Actually, I'm just going to do 1 cup and see how the texture is. I make a lot of smoothies, and I feel like 1 cup is always a pretty good amount. So we'll start with that. So that's just steamed butternut squash and some vegetable broth. Okay. I see I have some hellos. Okay. Hi. Okay. Lots of highs. Okay. Put the top on. Start the process here. I'm going to add a little bit. So pretty. So it's the beta carotene that gives it that pretty orange color. Okay, so that is perfect. Now I think this oil is probably nice and hot. Yes, it is. And we're going to fry our sage leaves. Ooh, can you hear that? It's good. They're sizzling. All right. Sage. Oh my goodness. Sage pasta is so good. There's an Italian restaurant that we love going to here, and they have the most wonderful butter sage pasta. So, butter and sage, Go very well with pasta. Okay, all right, so here we go. So you just fry it just for, gosh, probably just like a minute. What do they say? Okay, yeah, it says 30 seconds. All right. So we've got our paper towel. We're going to put the sage leaves on the paper towel. So yeah, that was good. It said to fry until they're bright green, but a little bit crispy. So that's what we did. All right. We will come back to those. Next, we are going to saute. I'm going to turn the heat down now. We don't want it quite so hot. I've got onion. This is one really small onion. And it calls for 2 cloves. I did 3 cloves of garlic. We love garlic in our house. Okay. So we're sauteing onions. Woo! And garlic. All right. Here we go. This is going to be delicious. Okay. So we've got onion, we've got garlic. Okay. And then basically all we do after this is pour the sauce back into the pan. So we still have a little bit of that texture from the onions and the garlic. And then we stir in Parmesan cheese, freshly grated. Delicious. All right. Here we go. And this is going to be our dinner tonight. We've been really excited about this ever since I decided I was going to do this recipe on the show today. We were like, yes, that's going to be a really good dinner. Okay. So we'll just let that saute for a minute or so. What do they say on the recipe? Okay. Place the squash. We did that. Okay, yeah, it says 3 to 5 minutes to saute the onions and the garlic. Just kind of until they're softened a little bit. All right. So many things you can do with butternut squash, but this is one of them. You could also very easily make this recipe with pumpkin or with delicata squash. You know, it doesn't have to just be butternut squash, but that's just pretty easy. And you can, a lot of times you can buy the butternut squash already peeled and cubed and everything for you. I know they have that at Trader Joe's, or I've seen it like frozen in the frozen section of other grocery stores too. So, or in the refrigerator section. So either way, it doesn't take too long to do it yourself, but if you're short on time, the pre-cubed pieces are just fine. Okay. Next, we are going to pour the sauce, or the pureed butternut squash. We're going to pour that over the onions. Oh boy, that looks good. Okay, so put this here and just stir that all together. And this is good because I'm making this now. We probably won't eat dinner for like 2 hours, so the onion and the garlic flavor is really going to blend in there nicely. Okay, then some salt and some pepper. This is almost like a butternut squash soup in a way, but it's a sauce. And it's going to be really good on the pasta. And then we take 2 sage leaves and just crumple them into the sauce. I'm going to do 3. Just because. And then the rest, it says to just like, when you put the sauce over your pasta, to put some of the fried sage leaves on top. And then I'm going to stir in this Parmesan cheese. So, so good. I don't think I've ever had a butternut squash pasta dish where the sauce is squash. but this is going to be really good. And then, of course, I'm going to serve this with some more Parmesan cheese on top because Parmesan cheese is delicious. Okay. And then you just let that kind of hang out. I'll bring it over here to show you. Woo! I almost spilled that. Okay. There we go. And then you cook your pasta. That's a pretty quick meal. Great for weeknight. We just made the jackfruit tacos that I made a couple weeks ago. I made that for dinner last night. And it's such a quick and easy recipe. Okay, so I'll take that off the stove, and that is butternut squash. Okay, let's move on. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, next is delicata squash. And I just love delicata squash for many reasons. I like the name delicata because delicate. And also because the skin is so thin that you don't have to peel it and you can eat it. And that just makes my life easier, and it's pretty. And so you just slice it in half, take the seeds out, chop it. I'll show you because I already steamed some delicata squash. We're going to put this in a smoothie. But first, we'll talk about the nutritional benefits of delicata squash. So, similar to butternut squash, delicata squash is a good source of fiber, good source of vitamin A, vitamin C, potassium. 1 cup of cooked delicata squash has 80 calories, so very similar to the butternut squash. The butternut squash had 82 calories, so pretty much the same. They're both pretty low in calories. And, this is a really good size to eat by yourself, or, you can slice it into those little half circles like this and then saute it or roast it. I roasted it the other night and it's very buttery. We had a stir fry and I put roasted delicata on top of it, like the veggies on the plate and then the roasted delicata on top. And I really thought that I had put something with butter in the dish, but no, it was just the delicata squash. It is so, so good. So, so good. So, anyway, back to the vitamin A, vitamin C. Those are our antioxidants. Those are good for our heart. That's good for our skin, for our hair, for our immune system. So we want to get those antioxidants. We want to get the vitamin C, the vitamin A, and I also steamed this. So if you have the opportunity, like steaming versus boiling, definitely steam or roast. Roast, I think you lose a little bit of the vitamin C, but not a ton. So steam or roast. Roasting definitely makes it taste delicious. I didn't roast it because we're putting it in a smoothie and it didn't really need that roasted flavor, but that is something to consider. Okay. Now, we are going to be making a smoothie next, and I just want to mention that if you've seen any of the other episodes, I'm writing a smoothie recipe book, and my manuscript is due this week, and I'm making 100 recipes for smoothies, and this tonight is going to be recipe 99. So that is very excited to be sharing that with you all. And I need some help naming the smoothie. So if anybody can think of a name. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's in it first, then we'll put it all together and make the smoothie. So we have, this is half of a delicata. I didn't want to use a whole delicata. So the recipe calls for, the recipe that I wrote, calls for half of a delicata, cooked, steamed. And then we're going to cut up a pear. So this is going to be a fall smoothie. One of the chapters is fall smoothies, so perfect. Timing, 1/4 of a cup of raw walnuts, 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 cup of almond milk. Okay, so put on your thinking caps, think of something fun for a title. I haven't decided yet, but I would love some suggestions. And we're gonna make the smoothie in here just so I didn't have to spend some time. I didn't want to spend time having to wash the blender. And this is kind of a fun way to do it too. So this is a hand blender, and it came with this little bowl, which is really nice. And then, so it's almost like a food processor, but it's a hand blender. Really great. Okay, so we're gonna put the squash in, half of a steamed delicata squash. And let's cut the pear. Okay. Yum. Okay, 1 slice, 2 slices, then 3 slices, and 4 slices. Okay. We've got our pear. And 1/4 of a cup of raw walnuts. And 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And 1 cup of almond milk. Okay. Here we go. This is very exciting. Put the lid on. And then we plug the hand blender in. Okay. And here we go. 1, 2, 3. Looks really good. Let's see. I'll detach that so I can just put it right here. I'll pour some in a glass because I've got to taste it and tell you how it is. Okay. It's a little bit messy, but that's okay. Okay. That's really good. I think in a blender it'd be a little bit smoother. But that's really good. You can really taste the pear and the walnut. You can't taste the delicata squash at all. So if you're looking for ways to use delicata squash, or if you want your family members to eat more vegetables, put it in a smoothie. It's really good. Really, really, really good. Okay. Last but not least, pumpkin. This is a pumpkin that my husband grew. It's just like a really special pumpkin. I really like the shape. All of them look like this. They look like little, from far away, it looked in our yard like little Christmas lights. Such a cute shape, and they're all different sizes. This is like one of the biggest ones. So the seeds are really nice and thick too, but I'm just talking about all different kinds of pumpkins right now. This is just one. Okay, so pumpkin. Pumpkin is, of all the squash and vegetables, it's the best known version of beta carotene, or source of beta carotene. So, beta carotene, vitamin A, you know what we're talking about. Antioxidants, good for your skin, good for your hair, good for your eyes. Forgot to mention that. Good for our eyes too. So, beta carotene, antioxidant. And that is a good thing. Turns into vitamin A in our bodies. And just as a general statement, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but adding more squash to your diet and just having more plant-based foods in your diet is just good for you in general. Typically adds more fiber. It adds more vitamins, a lot of times antioxidants, this is all good for our heart. It's good for our cholesterol levels. It helps lower our cholesterol. It's good for our blood pressure as long as we're not eating a ton of salt. Because a lot of these foods have potassium, such as pumpkins, such as delicata squash, such as butternut squash. All of them have good sources of potassium. So, in general, having a plant-based diet or just eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. I'm not saying everybody needs to be vegan, but just adding more fruits and vegetables to your diet definitely helps decrease our risk of obesity. It helps decrease our risk of diabetes because we're having the fiber and the vitamins and nutrients. So add more vegetables to your diet, such as squash. Pumpkins also are a good source of vitamin C. That also is good for our immune system. Getting rid of those free radicals floating around in our bodies, good for our skin, for the collagen production, good for our hair. And let's see what else. And also a good source of vitamin E, which is also an antioxidant. So 1 cup of cooked pumpkin has 3 grams of fiber, and 1 cup of canned cooked pumpkin has 7 grams of fiber because it's a lot more concentrated, which is great. You know, if you don't have time to cook your pumpkin, buy it canned. Just make sure you're not getting the pumpkin pie filling because that has sugar in it. But if you just get pureed canned pumpkin, it's just pumpkin. You can make soup with that. You can put it in your smoothies. You can make the sauce that we had tonight. You know, just instead of cubing it and steaming it or boiling it, you already have it pureed, which is great. And then you add it to the onions and the garlic and the sage. So you could easily do that with the recipe that we did tonight. So, in review, butternut squash. Hold on, I'll hold them all separately. Butternut squash, delicata squash, and pumpkin. There are more squashes out there, but these are just the 3 that we had, and I wanted to talk about them. All have a good source of beta carotene, therefore vitamin A, vitamin C, fiber, and potassium. So let's have more squash. The recipe we did tonight is called creamy butternut squash pasta. And so we made the sauce. I'm going to make some pasta later tonight. We're going to eat that over the pasta. And it was made with steamed butternut squash, onions, garlic, some vegetable broth, Parmesan cheese, and sage, salt and pepper. Super easy and super delicious. We then made a delicata squash smoothie with a pear and walnuts and cinnamon. Super easy. Just cook your delicata squash first, but that's really easy. You don't have to peel it, which is really nice. And it smells like fall, and it tastes like fall, and it's delicious. Thank you all so much for joining today. It has been fun. I love talking to all of you about nutrition topics. Please let me know if you have any other suggestions. I will be posting some photographs of the final product of our dinner tonight on my Instagram, which is at Alli Shircliff, ALLISHIRCLIFF. So I usually post the recipes that we make. On Mondays, I post what the topic is going to be for the show every week. So tune in again. Thanks for tuning in today. And I'll see you again next time. Have a great night. Eat your squash. Okay. Bye.